Are you asked this question often in Britain, that what are you doing for the youth? I know you are much younger by the standards of Indian politics. In Indian politics, we've had two prime ministers recently, three prime ministers served till their 80s.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm very honoured to be able to join you today. I hope this is now working. Well, I will just say that in the UK we are catching up with you because our leader of the Labour Party is 67. So if he becomes Prime Minister, then we could well be seeing our Prime Ministers going into the 70s and 80s. But I do want to say that this is a very important question, and my congratulations as well to Kavita and to all of you for putting on this conference. Young people do ask me, what are you doing for young people? And the reason why I am driven by this question as well, and why I work so hard with our schools, is because we feel the same that you do, that young people are our future. The challenges in Britain are perhaps a bit different to here, in that we have a different problem with the age profile. So older people are living longer and there aren't enough younger people, so there are worries about the future and who's going to be doing the jobs. But we face a big challenge in making sure that we are dealing with the issues of employability so that young people really have access to jobs and have the skills to do them, with social mobility, so that people aren't feeling like they're left behind. And we have a big debate in the UK about the left behinds, those who may be from towns, those where maybe industry isn't as much, and where their jobs are going to come from, and how we bridge what has been in Britain an establishment class divide as well. And also how we deal with well-being, because for our young people in Britain, we have a big problem with well-being. The stresses of social media, of challenges from, in many ways, families that are having to work very hard, less time being spent with children. So mental health and young people is a big topic for our debate. And I want to just maybe close with this point, which is that if we want our young people to be growing up, being able to do the jobs and be the leaders of the future, well-being has to be very much part of the agenda for politicians and for governments. And we cannot have a situation, as we're starting to see in the UK and in many other developed countries, where well-being and mental health and even suicide rates of younger people who give up hope so much earlier are topics of national debate and are seen as increasing crises for our countries.
Well, that's true, because mental health is now an epidemic, particularly in poorer countries where it wasn't recognized earlier. And now as standards of living go up, people are seeing it, and there is really no infrastructure to deal with it. India is extremely short, for example, of mental health professionals at all levels. Do you have some of that in Britain also?
We do have this issue in Britain, and I will tell you one brief story of when I had children coming into Parliament. So we have schools that visit regularly, and the first question I was asked by a 15-year-old about 4 months ago wasn't, what do you do as a member of Parliament? It was, why is there such a waiting list for young people to have support for mental health issues? Because her friends had been waiting, and there's now lots of data how that is impacting young people's ability to learn in school and then do well in their exams. Then the impact of that carries on with them through the rest of their life. But I do believe that if we take this seriously as families and as community and as nation and as international community, then we can start to turn this around. And there is an issue, I think, within the Asian community, and we're facing this now in the UK, and it is now a debate I'm starting, that within the Asian community, we don't talk about mental health issues. And we don't talk about that with confidence. And as a result, people are suffering much more than they should be.
Asad Bhai, so question I should ask you, what do MPs do in Parliament? And what do MPs do in Parliament especially that matters to young people?
Well, unfortunately, MPs don't do much in the Lok Sabha nowadays. Everything is done by the government. But you're right, this Lok Sabha is the oldest Lok Sabha. The average age in our country is 27 years, and the average age of MP in Lok Sabha is what, 55. So this has to be changed, and only 13% of our MPs are under the age of 40. Now, having said this, it is a huge responsibility on the members of Parliament, because if India's 50% of population are under the age of 25, and 16% of educated youth are unemployed, the CMI says that we have highest unemployment of 7.38%. Market research companies have said that more than 7 lakh people have been laid off in IT sector. 1/3 of non-workforce would be laid off by 2022. I feel this is a huge challenge for all the MPs, ruling party, whoever it is, to address this great issue. And if you don't rise up, because in Parliament is what? Parliament makes policy. And if you don't have youth inside the Parliament, which will impact their lives, then I feel that the parliamentary democracy is not working properly. We are failing to strengthen our parliamentary democracy. And as you rightly said in the opening remarks, in India, politician never gets old. Even if he is 48 years or 49 years as I am, I'm still called a youth leader, despite having so many white hair in my beard. So this narrative has to change, and it is high time for political parties, MPs like me, to really give opportunity to the youth so that they get elected, come and address their issues, their problems.
Well, I do remember that in 1976, when I was a journalism student, Congress party during the emergency was having its big session near Chandigarh. I used to study in Chandigarh, and we were all herded in buses to go and watch the session. It was good free meal, a picnic at Bhakra Nangal. And so this was a youth Congress function that Sanjay Gandhi was addressing. And the gentleman standing next to him was Mr. Y.S. Parmar, the former Chief Minister of Himachal, who was about 78 years old then. So somebody said, what is he doing in a youth Congress rally? And Sanjay Gandhi said, there is youth of various kinds. Some people are young by age, some people are young in the mind, some people are young in the heart. So Dr. Parmar, having written his PhD thesis on polyandry, was particularly suited to be young in the heart. So don't lose hope. Just because you have grey beard, it doesn't mean you are young anymore.
No, as you rightly said, as long as I'm alive, I'll continue to give hate speeches, and that makes me look younger. You made a very important point in your speech. I was really shocked to read, but it is the reality of our country, that the Secretariat in Maharashtra, for 13 posts of waiters, 7,000 people applied. And out of that, 12 are graduates. This in itself clearly shows that this is a huge challenge for us. And unless and until we address this issue of education, if you have a vice chancellor of a university saying that Ravana had 24 aircrafts, you know where our education is heading.
Well, that is less than the Rafales we are buying now. Still. So Ravana did not have much of an air force. Kavita, if you could address a couple of these points, but also look at yet another point. You sit in the south. You also sit in a very rich city. Now, we were just looking at data. In fact, TN Nayanan has an article that we published today, where he says that a state like Madhya Pradesh has more population than Telangana and Andhra combined, but some 12 or 13% of their tax base. So there is a lot of regional imbalance in India. The flip side of it is that states in the south have been able to control their population growth. So you are not adding the numbers, whereas the Hindi heartland and states in the east, which are not growing, are adding the numbers. So there are lot more young people coming up there who don't have jobs. There are a lot more old people coming up in the south. So two things. One, national resources, if they are divided on the basis of numbers, then states that are not doing very well are getting more money. And second, 2026, when once again you look at the distribution of constituencies, and that is on the basis of population, then you could face a situation that seats, South will lose the seats, and states which are not doing very well will add the seats, the political power balance will shift. Do you see a situation arising when young people of the north and the south are at odds with each other?
As of now, even in Parliament, we see this discussion often that South versus North bias is there, whereas South contributes more to the GDP of the nation and North takes a greater chunk because the population is more. But then I don't look at it that way. We are a nation as a whole, and I think the people sitting in the power at the center should look at the nation as a whole and look at the distribution system, which can be just and fair to everybody. And yes, when it comes to political power and when it comes to distribution of member of parliaments and the seats, I think that time it should be thought in a different lines. But when it comes to feeding the poor, when it comes to addressing the unemployment issues, when it comes to addressing the education, health issues, I think it should be as a one nation philosophy. But then, you know, India is huge and each of our state is probably the size of Australia or even bigger. I think Telangana is pretty much about the population of Australia. So in that sense, in that terms, I think I was hearing your initial remarks. And we should really focus inwards and work on developing the infrastructure. And as you rightly said, today we are the youngest nation. But I'll make an observation, Shekharji, and we should all really look forward to working on this. Today we are younger, but then within 30 years we'll be the oldest nation in the world. So right now, if we don't form a geriatric ministry and start working towards these policies, tomorrow we'll all be in huge mess. As we see, you know, we can't address the youth problems now. 30 years later, we will not be able to address the senior citizens' problems. So policy making should be wholesome. Policy making should be futuristic. And when it comes to states, I believe I should like to think as an Indian first, feed the hungry people, then think about the states.
So, if I may paraphrase it, you are suggesting a pragmatic solution. You don't particularly mind the resources of the nation going more to states which have more numbers but are underdeveloped, but a political balance of power not to shift. That maybe parliament seats should be frozen as they are, and southern states should not be punished for controlling their population.
No, I totally disagree because performance should be taken into consideration. Because if you don't reward performance, whether in terms of reducing the population, whether in terms of GDP growth of a state, and the most important point of seats, parliamentary seats. Now, why do you want to punish me just because I have reduced the population? And if you are not successful in reducing the population, how long can this hegemony of an area in a country continue? Because it is, I think so, it is also very improper and it is injustice to the people of a state wherein you represent, an MP represents what, 24 lakh people, 2.4 million people. How is that possible? And I represent 1.5 million. Now this has to be addressed, and I'm pretty much sure that at the time of distribution, when in 2026 a commission is going to form, this will be there will be a huge outcry, public outcry would be there, and some sort of formula must be evolved wherein the performing states must be rewarded, and there must be an acceptable formula created, because this sort of imbalance cannot continue forever in our country.
I'll just make a quick point. Performing state, as in when the GST Council was also sitting in the country, we really fought it out from Telangana. We said we are developing at 20 to 23%, unlike any other state in the country. But then you are only trying to cap us at 14%. That is not correct. Yes, in terms of performance of a state, we should get better incentives. बट अभी यूपी में है, मध्य प्रदेश में है, फिर भी वो तो हमारे भाई है, हिंदुस्तानी है, तो यू कांट पनिश देम जस्ट बिकॉज दे आर मोर इन नंबर, यू कांट गिव देम मोर हॉस्पिटल्स, यू विल हैव टू इन्वेस्ट मोर इन देम, बट देन येस, रिवॉर्ड द परफॉर्मिंग स्टेट्स with better incentives, better industrial incentives, better policies from the central government is what I believe.
So to bring you back to my pet hobby horse, if you look at, please do read that article by T.N. Nayanan. It's on our website, theprint.in. It's not behind a paywall, so you can read it. It's a very short article. It tells you how, if you see carefully, the states that have poor social indicators and not improving fast enough, and larger populations, and a much smaller tax base, you will find an interesting factor there. These are the, because which is the state doing the worst of all on these parameters? It is Bihar. And what is common between these states? That those states have not focused on urbanization. They have not built cities, they have not built industrial areas, they have not created new jobs. So their people are now forming the bulk of these 2.5 crore applications for 66,000 railway jobs, or whatever number is said, 7,000 for 13 jobs? 7,000 for 13 waiters jobs. So these people are coming in from there. In fact, the fastest growing job opportunity in India right now is private security guards. So that is the state that we are in. Also, just to tell you a little tidbit, think all of India, in fact, India is now handling its population problem much better than was imagined. People had predicted much worse, but India's population growth rate is now down to 1.4% per year and declining. So soon, overall, India, much sooner than we had thought, India will be at replacement values as the states of the south are. But in the middle of this, while all of India has 1.4% growth, the state of UP is 2.8% growth, twice as much. And remember, there's another country in our neighborhood which also has exactly the same rate of population growth, 2.8%. And that country, the population exactly the same size as that of UP. So you can see that a state of 22 crores in India is now mimicking the population indicators of Pakistan. I say this with care, but this tells you that if you compare, say, UP with Andhra, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, so that is how imbalance is now coming up. And young people are noticing it on both sides because those are becoming labor exporting states, but they are not exporting the best quality labor for the best quality jobs in your states. And that is a big problem. But Gaurav, you come from one of the most distant states in the country, which has many good things happening, but some not many good things happening. How does all this sound to you? And do you see a special sense of alienation or euphoria among the youth in your state? Gaurav comes from Assam.
Well, first of all, thank you to Kavita for inviting me here. And I think this is a great blend of speakers and a great blend of participants. There are many issues that have been said by my previous speakers which have a resonance with the Northeast. But with the Northeast part of our country, one has to take into account the historical factors of insurgency, of law and order issues, of various political movements which were driven by ethnicity. And maybe that's something that people of Telangana will also resonate with and connect with. As a result of these political movements and the law and order situation that it created, in the Northeast we've lost close to 2 decades of economic growth. So when after Dr. Manmohan Singh's economic liberalization policies in 1991, when the rest of the country was growing gradually from 4% to 6% to 9%, the Northeast was stuck at anywhere between 2 to 3%. So we've lost 2 decades and we've come out of step and out of sync with the rest of India. Nonetheless, the positive story is that the last decade has built foundations for development, has built foundations for economic growth. And I think in the Northeast, what we understand is that we do not have enough jobs to employ the people of our region. So therefore, what we focus on, and many governments in the Northeast of India are focusing on are also livelihoods. So you do have the formal sector jobs, which are the jobs in the government, the jobs in the private sector, but because there are not enough private sector investment in the Northeast, we're also looking at livelihoods. Now, what does livelihoods mean? It could mean anything, a rural-based livelihood, which could vary anything from a hair salon to diversifying your farmers, to diversifying your farming produce, to urban livelihoods, which could be either getting into services, opening your own gym, or opening your own hotels. So we're trying to focus a lot more on services to create employment, and realizing that there are not enough formal sector jobs. So livelihoods has to be a critical part of your employment strategy. So you see Sikkim having this, grow organic mission. And that is not only from the point of view from growing organic or from a healthy nutrition point of view, it has a strong employment correlation to it. But one thing I must share, one thing that I see in the Northeast, which I perhaps don't see in other parts of the country, is that the participation of young people in politics. If you remember the history of Assam, you see that we have Prafulla Mohanta, who came from student politics. One of the biggest accords of Assam, the Assam Accord, which was signed by the government of India, was signed with a students' association. So the role of students right from high school and college in politics, in understanding the needs of their region, in understanding the political aspirations of the ethnic communities that they belong to, I think that's a very healthy thing. And I think one that should be encouraged. We want to encourage young people to mobilize themselves, to organize themselves around political causes. And one should encourage that. Even if you're in government, one should encourage that. Unfortunately, in today's India, the space for debate and democracy is shrinking. Anytime a young person voices an opinion which is antagonistic to this government, they are filed with sedition cases. Now, that's not how you're going to encourage young people to enter into politics if you're going to file sedition cases. Anytime there's a university which has an independent thought, and a thought which is of constructive criticism, the whole weight of the central government, the ministry, the Union Ministry of Education comes down on that university, whether that's in Delhi or whether that's in Hyderabad. And I think that's very unfair. The government has nothing to be afraid of students. The government needs to encourage students to be more, to imbibe the values of democracy and parliamentary debate.
So let me ask my trick question to the three of you. You have immunity from this. Are we wrong to say that Indian politicians, old politicians have not done enough for the youth? In fact, they've done enough for the youth as long as the youth happens to be from their families. So three of you come from distinguished families. Now, this is an important question about politics. In so many decades of watching politics now in India from very close, and having known almost everybody who's anybody in politics, I found only one case of a young person crashing through these entry barriers and reaching the top someplace, and that is Arvind Kejriwal. Besides that, every young person, and I'm no fan of his, he and I spar quite a lot, but just because somebody is young, I don't stop arguing with them, right? But the fact is that it is impossible, entry barriers are such that it's impossible for a young person to break through in politics anywhere except if he or she comes from a distinguished family. And that is not truer of any party more than yours. Because, if you count the top 30, top 50 of your party, from any calculation, I will show you that you beat all the others on this parameter. So you first and then the other two.
Well, Shekhar, I'd like to make a slight distinguishing factor. I think it's very hard for young people to get into Indian political parties, but it's not impossible, but young people are getting into politics. And I think in the Congress party, what we've realized that young people are interested and are passionate about political causes, they might not join the Congress party, but we might find a common cause around which we unite and we come together. So if you look at Gujarat as an example, you had Hardik come in, you had Jignesh come in. Not all of them joined. Alpesh joined the Congress party, but not all of them did. But yet we came around. And I think that's one of the points that we completely understand in the Congress party, that they are, with Indian political parties, because you, as one member of parliament, you have to represent 22 lakh, 24 lakh. Coming from a political family does give you an asset, but that doesn't mean that only by inducting young people into my party am I going to engage with them. I can engage with them around causes, around issues, and then I think that's what is going to be the way forward. Whether it's someone that we come around with a Kanhaiya or a Shela Rashid or a Jignesh, we might differ on some issues and we might come together on some issues. Nonetheless, I have found in our experience in the recent elections that have taken place over the last 2 years, within our party, and I must be honest about this, we've consciously, while screening candidates and while giving, tickets to candidates, we've looked for more younger representatives of a party to go ahead and contest in their respective constituencies, whether that's been in Karnataka, whether that's been in Gujarat. And it's right now, I must say, you understand Indian politics, you understand how people vote for a face, for an idea. It's very difficult for a young person to win an election. More often than not, the senior person from that area, if he doesn't get that ticket, he stands as an independent and really ruins the chances. So we must also, in political parties, understand that it's not just about giving tickets. We have to create this space for them to be able to, grow the political career in a safe space without being threatened by or attacked by elders within the party.
So, Kavita, you think entry barriers are too high, or do you think they are being lowered? And second, is dynasty good or bad in politics?
Well, as Gaurav said, it is not only difficult for a young person to win election, but it is difficult for any person to win an election. Because election in India, the population in India has so many subdivisions and, if you look at the caste barriers, then you look at the class barriers, there is a huge electioneering process to be done when it comes to winning elections. And when it comes to parties, as you rightly said, being from a so-and-so family certainly has an advantage. But then I say this with a good sense. In the sense, see, a doctor's son, if he wants to aspire and become a doctor because he admires his father, it is not taken in a bad light. But when a politician's son or a daughter wants to enter into politics, it is looked upon in a very negative perspective. I would only like to say, politics is a testing field. Like, if I am there, I'm an MP right now, but then I have to go back to people every 5 years and then seek their mandate again. So if I do not perform, despite me from being whatever family, if I do not perform as an MP, people will vote me out. That is the strength of democracy. So dynasty is good or bad, I wouldn't know, because this is in every state of India you see this. And what good has come out of it, I think that should be looked at. What bad has come out of it, I think that should be looked at. And being a woman, I would say it is much more difficult for women in India to enter into politics in any party, sustain there, and be strong. So that is why I think reservation for women is important. And reservation for maybe, youngsters also should soon come into play. Because otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to convince any party, including my party, Asad Bhai's party, Gaurav's party, any party, to convince the parties to give tickets to women or to young people. It is simply not possible. So it is time now that we enforce rules on the political parties to make sure, young people enter, more women enter into politics.
Well, before people start Googling, I shall also qualify that when I said Kejriwal, I looked at a certain age group as a minimum qualification, being below a certain age group. But there are politicians in India who built their own politics despite entry barriers. Her father being one of them, until 5 years back, he wasn't seen to be such a national figure. Today he is a national figure, everybody knows him. And he's built his politics by himself in this area. Mamta Banerjee has done it in Bengal. Mayawati has done it in UP, although she inherited some of it from Kanchiram. So people have built their politics, but I use the Kejriwal example because he's somebody who came from a popular movement and was much younger than the rest. And also, if you see people around him, they tend to be much younger. So, Asad Bhai, is dynasty good or bad? And for you, is that an advantage? Is that a liability? I can ask you questions like this.
Sir, it is both. Let me give you an example of Kavita, her brother, another cousin brother. I don't think so. They won the first election because of being only KCR's daughter or nephew, because we opposed the formation of Telangana. But I have seen her brother in the struggle of creation of Telangana. So that itself made them good leaders. You know, that was itself because they suffered, went to prisons, cases and everything. Now, the important point over here is that, which I hope Gaurav would not mind me saying this. So long as national parties like BJP and Congress continue to rule India, the youth of this country will never get an opportunity. So the more regional parties you have, the more smaller parties you have more avenues, more platform to contest election, because the national parties, good or bad, in a bad way, they think that no, unless and until you cross the age of 48, you know, you cannot lead the nation. So I feel that
Are you referring to Rahul Gandhi? Because he's crossing 48 now.
I don't know whether he's still ready or not, that Gaurav can say. You know, the thing is, and the third point is that, yes, coming from a political family, the first selection is fine. But after that, performance counts, you have to work really hard, and that is where it becomes a liability, because no matter what me or Gaurav or Kavita do, people will always look at us from the prism of our fathers. Oh, your father was this. So it's like the father is like a huge banyan tree, nothing goes under it. No matter how hard you do. For example, I have been in politics from last 25 years, and there's a particular lane in my constituency called Fateh Darwaza. I have seen that boy from 9 years now, he is around about 28, and he still calls me, oh, look, there goes the son of Salahuddin Owaisi. So it is very hard. And third important point which one must understand is that Indian democracy we have incorporated this great disease of money power. Now, unless and until you have sufficient funds, you cannot win an election. Now, how is it possible for a youth coming from a common background, unless and until he's backed by that political party, or there are reasonable rich people to back him? I don't think so. You know, you will have great opportunity. That is not the case in Europe. That is not the case in UK, because they have this decentralized system of choosing candidate from the party itself chooses. Here, hegemony has destroyed in a very big way opportunities for you to enter the parliament and assembly.
Sivaji, you've had very young leaders. In fact, I did ask David Cameron once that, how does it feel to interact with Indian leaders who are twice his age? In your experience, are they taken as seriously as the older ones might have been? I'm not suggesting that that's the reason your party has chosen an older one now. Because you've had Tony Blair, Conservatives had David Cameron. I don't know what age the current Prime Minister conforms to, because he's not very easy to read. I think you will agree with me on that.
I would agree with you on that, but we have a great phrase when we talk about young people, and I say young people aged 8 to 80, because it is a lot also how you feel. But and some of the most agile politicians, some of the ones who are really the ones who are speaking up for young people, are definitely those in their 80s in the House of Commons at the moment. And I think there is this very important point about how we sort of see equality between the ages. Because you're right, the younger leaders, Tony Blair, when he was leader of the Labour Party, then Prime Minister in early 40s, same with David Cameron, it was, you've got to have a way in which you're taking everybody with you. And really that was reflective of the average age of the nation. But there's more that we have to do to build the pipeline of young people. It's almost like seeing how you're bringing the supply into politics. And I have been somebody who has always liked to challenge anything that is having a sort of status quo. And in politics, I've called it the hereditary principle, when you've had people in politics who have had their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents in politics. There's been a great deal of that, particularly in the Conservative Party in the UK. In fact, last week I did something new, and I, as a politician who had come from, daughter of immigrants, no family background in politics at all, we agreed on a policy on how we might solve the Brexit question. And I wrote an article together with the grandson of Winston Churchill, who's a member of Parliament. So two very different people, very different backgrounds, different generations. We wrote something about Britain's future together. Now, I'll say this, which is, we've tried to tackle this question as well about how you create mobility into politics. And I started a political education program for women about 8 years ago that has now got a mentoring scheme. And 42 out of 180 women who have gone through that have now been elected into local government positions, because we've had an active mentoring. We have political education that is all about bringing people into those spaces. So I've designed it so that we have people coming into Parliament, getting experience of the House of Commons, going into local government. So it's creating training in those spaces. And in addition, in my local area, we've started in our schools, one in particular, a parliament. So the school has its own parliament. It has its own select committees with young people who are shadowing those areas. They create the priorities in their schools, but they do it on the basis as if they were the House of Commons. And they have a speaker as well that chairs their parliament. And we also have a very important institution called the Youth Parliament in Britain. I don't know if you have this in India, where we have young people who elect a member of the Youth Parliament in the local area. And the Youth Parliament meets in the UK, and the Speaker of the House of Commons has allowed one day when we are in recess for those members of the Youth Parliament to have their constituencies, just as we do across the country. They come and they have their debate in the House of Commons chamber for a day. And their priorities and what happens in their conference is debated by us as the national politicians. So we have a big responsibility, not just to think about individuals, and we've seen a move to the older generation now in our British politics. Everything has a rebound, it seems. But how do we create those pathways? And how do we, as politicians, nail down the ladders for those pathways, so that we see a way in which we're having young people develop their talent, their experience, and listening to what's coming out from the debates that young people are having for themselves.
Well, thank you very much. We have two short sessions for panelists of this eminence and such articulations, so I'm afraid I can't go on longer. But our time is running out, but I think I'll stretch my goodwill a little bit and take some time for questions. So please raise your hand and a microphone will come to you. Right in front of me, the lady. If you would stand up, blue shirt. Yeah, if you would stand up, microphone will come to you. Please tell us your name and then tell us who you are addressing your question to, and please keep it short.
Yes. My name is Revati. Thank you for the interesting discussion. I speak on behalf of others in the crowd. All of us are working to make a better world, but not all of us are cut out to be career politicians. But like they say, everything is political whether you intend it to be politics or not. So for us who are change makers, how can we work with policy makers like those of you on the stage? And I am personally interested in the Indian government and the policy makers here. How can we work with you for whatever work that we are doing individually here? What advice do you have?
Do you live in Hyderabad?
No, I'm from Karnataka myself.
Karnataka, okay. Maybe, Kavita, you want to have?
I would advise you, not advise, strong words, I will suggest you that you should really look into working with PRS, which is an organization based in Delhi, which gives people like you an opportunity to work as a intern or lab assistant with the MPs. And that would really, really help you understand how we as members of parliament work. And secondly, as a member of parliament, I have introduced a private member's bill in the parliament to reduce the age to contest the MP and the ML election from 25 to 20. Because if 16 years is no more, you're no more a juvenile and you can be tried as a criminal. So why not have the age of 20 for anyone to contest as an MP and MLA? And thirdly, you know, join a political party, but not a national party.
So he's made his pitch. I think I have to take one from every corner. The white shirt there, gentleman here. I think him first.
Reasonable, rich people to back him. I don't think so. You know, you will have great opportunity. That is not the case in Europe. That is not the case in UK, because they have this decentralized system of choosing candidate from a the party itself chooses. Here, hegemony has destroyed in a very big way opportunities for you to enter the parliament and assembly.
Sivaji, you've had very young leaders. In fact, I did ask David Cameron once that, you know, how does it feel to interact with Indian leaders who are twice his age? In your experience, are they taken as seriously as the older ones might have been? I'm not suggesting that that's the reason your party has chosen an older one now. Because you've had Tony Blair, Conservatives had David Cameron. I don't know what the current Prime Minister conforms to, because she's not very easy to read. I think you will agree with me on that.
I would agree with you on that, but you know, we have a great phrase when we talk about young people, and I say young people aged 8 to 80, because it is a lot also how you feel. But and some of the most agile politicians, some of the ones who are really the ones who are speaking up for young people, are definitely those in their 80s in the House of Commons at the moment. And I think there is this very important point about how we sort of see equality between the ages. Because you're right, younger leaders, Tony Blair, when he was leader of the Labour Party, then Prime Minister in early 40s, same with David Cameron. You know, you've got to have a way in which you're taking everybody with you. And really that was reflective of the average age of the nation. But there's more that we have to do to build the pipeline of young people. It's almost like seeing how you're bringing the supply into politics. And I have been somebody who has always liked to challenge anything that is having a sort of status quo. In politics, I've called it the hereditary principle, when you've had people in politics who have had their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents in politics. There's been a great deal of that, particularly in the Conservative Party in the UK. In fact, last week I did something new, and I, as a politician who had come from, you know, daughter of immigrants, no family background in politics at all, we agreed on a policy on how we might solve the Brexit question. And I wrote an article together with the grandson of Winston Churchill, who's a member of Parliament. So two very different people, very different backgrounds, different generations. We wrote something about Britain's future together. Now, I'll say this, which is, we've tried to tackle this question as well about how you create mobility into politics. And I started a political education program for women about 8 years ago that has now got a mentoring scheme. And 42 out of 180 women who have gone through that and have now been elected into local government positions, because we've had an active mentoring, we have political education that is all about bringing people into those spaces. So I've designed it so that we have people coming into Parliament, getting experience of the House of Commons, going into local government. So it's creating training in those spaces. And in addition, in my local area, we've started in our schools, one in particular, a parliament. So the school has its own parliament. It has its own committees with young people who are shadowing those areas. They create the priorities in their schools, but they do it on the basis as if they were the House of Commons. And they have a speaker as well that chairs their parliament. And we also have a very important institution called the Youth Parliament in Britain. I don't know if you have this in India, where we have young people who elect a member of the Youth Parliament in the local area. And the Youth Parliament meets in the UK, and the Speaker of the House of Commons has allowed one day when we are in recess for those members of the Youth Parliament have their constituencies, just as we do, across the country. They come and they have their debate in the House of Commons chamber for a day. And their priorities and what happens in their conference is debated by us as the national politicians. Individuals, and we've seen a move to the older generation now in our British politics. Everything has a rebound, it seems. But how do we create those pathways? And how do we, as politicians, for those pathways, so that we see a way in which we're having young people develop their talent, their experience, and listening to what's coming out from the debates that young people are having for themselves?
Well, thank you very much. We have two short sessions for panelists of this eminence and such articulations, so I'm afraid I can't go on longer. Our time is running out, but I think I'll stretch my goodwill a little bit and take some time for questions. So please raise your hand and a microphone will come to you. The right in front of me, the lady. If you would stand up, blue shirt. Yeah, if you would stand up, microphone will come to you. Please tell us your name and then tell us who you are addressing your question to, and please keep it short.
Yes. My name is Revati. Thank you for the interesting discussion. I speak on behalf of others in the crowd. All of us are working to make a better world, but not all of us are cut out to be career politicians. But like they say, everything is political whether you intend it to be politics or not. So for us who are change makers, how can we work with policy makers like those of you on the stage? And I am personally interested in the Indian government and the policy makers here. How can we work with you for whatever work that we are doing individually here? What advice do you have?
Do you live in Hyderabad?
No, I'm from Karnataka myself.
Karnataka, okay. Maybe Kavita, you want to head?
I would advise, not a strong word, I will suggest you that you should really look into working with PRS, which is an organization based in Delhi, which gives people like an opportunity to work as a intern or lab assistant with the MPs. And that would really, really help you to understand how we as members of parliament work. And secondly, as a member of parliament, I've introduced a private member's bill in the parliament to reduce the age to contest the MP and the ML election from 25 to 20. You're no more a juvenile and you can be tried as a criminal. So why not have the age of 20 for anyone to contest as an MP and MLA? And thirdly, join a political party, but not a national party.
So he's made his pitch. I think I have to take every corner. The white shirt there, gentleman, yes. I think him first. And
Good afternoon, This is Azizuddin Sultani from Afghanistan, doing my PhD. One is regarding the United Kingdoms. In the news of the Guardians, they have shared in the last 1 decade, there's no any gender equality improved. In the case of education, healthcare, and also social development. The second question is regarding the Indian. And recently there's a report published in BBC in 2018 that India is one of the dangerous countries for the women. So some of the Ministry of Women of India, they have rejected these reports. They say this is not real clarity and it's a fake, or maybe they have some conclusion regarding it. But this is my question is this: if this report is fake, so why BBC, one of the famous media, they have published? And so what's the mechanism of the government of India regarding to the woman empowerment in India, and as well as to improve and help the woman to reduce this kind of conflict issues in the society? Thank you.
I think first I didn't understand also, but let's answer the second.
Thank you. Regarding the women's safety, around the world, various nations are working on different policies, and I wouldn't really say any country, including US, UK, or any country, is as safe. But in India, one thing I can particularly tell you, now the number of crimes reported in India is going up. The awareness among the women that if you are subjected to a crime, you should really go out and report has gone up. That kind of increases the number when you look at from the outside. The reason why this report was rejected by the Indian government is precisely that it is purely based on the data, not on the facts on the ground. Number of crimes being reported has gone up, but that doesn't necessarily mean the crime itself has gone up. Crime was equal earlier, but not reported as much.
There is a microphone there.
Hello.
Yes.
Myself Nikhil Godke. I am from the Maharashtra state, from the Pune. मेरा क्वेश्चन ओवीसी जी से है कि यदि आप लोग कहते हैं कि 41 वर्ष के आगे लीडर नहीं होता तो फिर देश का प्रधानमंत्री मेरे जैसा युवक बन सकता है क्या? यदि बन सकता है, उसके पास सिर्फ जज्बा है लेकिन उसके पास अनुभव की कमी नहीं है, तो फिर ऐसे लीडर का क्या महत्व है, आप मुझे बताइए। और मेरा दूसरा क्वेश्चन यह है, यदि आप युवा डेवलपमेंट की बात करना चाहते हैं, यदि आप युवा डेवलपमेंट की बात करते हैं, तो आप ऐसे भड़काऊ भाषण क्यों देते हैं? और दूसरा क्वेश्चन यह है, यदि आप महात्मा गांधी जी के विचारों पे चलते हैं, तो फिर आप ये स्टेटमेंट देने से पहले 100 बार क्यों नहीं सोचते कि अपने देश का क्या होना चाहिए और अपनी विचारधारा क्या है?
और आपका दूसरा सवाल दोबारा बोलिए।
यदि आप युवा डेवलपमेंट के बारे में युवा डेवलपमेंट करना चाहते हैं, तो अपने आप भाषण ऐसे क्यों भड़काऊ देते हैं? भड़काऊ भाषण क्यों देते हैं, ऐसा मेरा क्वेश्चन है। और यदि आप महात्मा गांधी जी के विचारों पे चलते हैं, तो फिर आप स्टेटमेंट देने से पहले क्यों नहीं सोचते?
अगर आप महात्मा गांधी के विचार पर चलते हैं तो
धीरे से बोलिए। सेकंड क्वेश्चन,
यदि आप महात्मा गांधी जी के तो फिर आप स्टेटमेंट देने से पहले 1000 बार क्यों नहीं सोचते, ऐसा मेरा क्वेश्चन है।
मैं आपको बताना चाह रहा हूं कि मैं ये बात पहले भी कहा हूं, आज भी कह रहा हूं और बड़े गर्व से कह रहा हूं कि मेरी नज़र में बाबा साहिब अम्बेडकर महात्मा गांधी से बड़े लीडर थे। मैं अम्बेडकर को मानने वाला हूं। ये मेरी ज़ाती राय है, आपको पसंद नहीं आएगी। दूसरी बात यह है कि आप प्रधानमंत्री बनना चाहते हैं, मैं दुआ करूंगा कि आप ज़रूर प्रधानमंत्री बन जाएं। मगर फिर से कह रहा हूं कि नेशनल पार्टी में आप अगर जाएंगे तो आप कॉरपोरेटर भी नहीं बन पाएंगे। तो आप कोई दूसरी पार्टी में जाइए जहां से आप प्रोग्रेस कर सकें, वरना बड़े पार्टियों में होता क्या है कि या तो आप खानदान के होना, नहीं तो फिर आप पानदान में चले जाते। और अगर आप दूसरी पार्टी में गए तो आप आलाजाद के हाई कास्ट सुना पड़ेगा। तो इसलिए मेरा 25 साल का तजुर्बा ये है कि आप जैसे युवाओं के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है कि आप पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन करें, और तीसरी बात कि मैं भाषण देने से पहले सोचता क्यों नहीं हूं, ऐसा ऐसा मत समझिए भाई, मैं थोड़ा पढ़ा लिखा हूं, मेरे पास एंटायर पॉलिटिकल साइंस की डिग्री नहीं है, मगर मेरे पास लिंकन इन से बारेट लॉ की डिग्री है, तो थोड़ा सोच के ही कहता हूं। तकलीफ जरूर होती है, मेरा मकसद ये है कि लोग को तकलीफ पहुंचे ताकि वो सोचे जो मैं बोल रहा हूं।
Now you see that he has converted this into a recruitment rally for his party. So question there, the young lady in white shirt. Yes, please stand up and ask.
Hi everyone, I am Jayanti from Youth for Better India organization, India. My first question is to Seema. So I want to listen to any two policies that are working in Britain that are not actually there in India. And my second question to Shekhar Gupta ji, you were speaking about, bothering for youth by older generation, but do you think, the present generation is capable or strong enough to remove all the supply gap without any guidance from any older generation, or should it be a mutual work? And my third question to all the MPs over here.
I think two is enough. Two is enough.
Just one last question.
No. Two is enough. So, Seema ji.
I just want to know any two policies in Britain that are working for youth development, which are not actually there in India, but would be useful for Indian youth as well.
Any two policies that UK has which are working for the youth, which haven't been yet implemented in India?
Other than youth parliament.
That's a very good question. I think I will highlight a couple of policies, and then you can tell me if they're happening in India. One of the main policies that we have has been apprenticeships, but they haven't gone far enough, and this is where companies are now paying a levy, and they then have to provide certain places, and it's a national program for apprenticeships. Now, the problem is that that isn't reaching as much as it needs to, and I'm now talking to our local employers, to Heathrow Airport and to others, to say if you have and you're starting your apprenticeship programs, and the government is now investing into supporting those programs, you should have quotas for local schools. Because what we want is young people not just getting jobs, but feeling they have a future in our area. We have the same problem of youth flight as other areas, where they leave the places they grew up because they don't believe there are the opportunities there, even on the outskirts of London. And when we have this problem, we're not seeing the sustainability in our family and community life either. Those will go to college and not come back because the opportunities are elsewhere. So we're saying to employers, you've got good jobs. You're recruiting from outside our area. Help grow young people at home and have the links now. Have the quotas for young people to get those jobs with you. The second thing I will mention, a policy that's just starting. Because we have a problem, you talk about supply, but we have a problem of housing. Young people can't afford to live near where the jobs are either, or live near their parents. So this is also a problem for stability for families when we're thinking about the future. So now there are more policies, and the London Mayor, a Labour Mayor, is helping start these, to have some rent controls and have ways in which you can have housing be more affordable for young people. Because we have a problem where we say there's now a broken consensus. It used to be the next generation you always knew would do better than the one coming before it. But now there's a problem where the next generation is likely to be doing worse and having less prosperity than the generations coming before it. So it's a big political problem. So if we can tackle the access to jobs and the good jobs, and we can make them be more affordable, this, I think, will go a long way to giving young people the confidence that they have a politics that's on their side.
We'll take the last. In fact, I will pass my question so that panelists can get one more question. Lady in the back. Yeah. And I think we'll have to close it unless, Kavita, can we go a bit longer or shall we close it? Close
Hi.
it. Okay, last question then.
Yeah, my name is Shupra. I'm from Delhi. I work with the civil organization, civil society. First, I think I would just like to start off by saying that nepotism exists everywhere, and there is no point denying it. There is no point justifying it. You can say it's a bane or a boon, but you can't deny it. I just want to put it out there. Secondly, I want to start with saying that, the central political parties in India, like the Congress and the BJP, have their youth-affiliated Congress and BJP parties, like the ABU, APN. And being at the university, I have seen these elections very close up front. And let me tell you, they're as ugly as central elections are. So I would want to firstly put it in the spaces that you have actually created for the youth to come up are the that exist within the central political parties, and we don't really have a space to come out there and put our issues at hand. And secondly, the policies that we've actually come out with and the policies that this government really prides itself on for the youth, like you say Make in India or Digital India, are far from reality. Because the
what is your question?
I want to know why is there this gap that exists between the realities of the youth and the policies that exist, and why, if we are creating this space for the people to come in, we are not really allowing them to speak what they really want to, because it's largely being...
So do you have a question addressed to any of these?
Yeah, it's for all of them. You can answer it collectively.
No, we don't have time for all of them. You answer a sharp question addressed to any of them.
Okay, so I think I will, Gaurav, you can answer my question as to why there exists this gap between the realities of the space and the policies that the government comes out with.
Gaurav, you take it.
I'm going to take, I think, from what I've understood from your first part of your question and also the second question. I'll answer the second question first because I think that's more important. You see, and don't mind my saying this, but in 2014, when we heard of 2 crore jobs, we heard of Digital India, Startup India, Mudra. These were all 4 very good policy promises. And these are classic examples of, you might have great intentions, but they have not seen the results on the ground. And that happens because the leadership is not focused, is not giving them. And I think in the end, you cannot discount the importance of leadership and the priority given. If the priority is given only to winning elections, if the priority is given only to creating slogans that you can attract votes, but the priority is not given to implementing, then that's a huge difference. And I'll give you an example of what my party did as a counter. We give priority to farmers, and if you might like it or not like it, we give priority to loan waivers. And in the 3 states that we won recently, we've implemented our electoral promise. So that's an example of where we've done it, and an example that where it was just an election slogan. I'm slightly worried that Asad Bhai has converted this into a recruiting rally for regional parties. So let me also throw in my pitch without saying that all regional parties, whether in the south or the north, have the same issues that he has raised with the big regional parties when it comes to families. And I would request him to point out examples where he sees it to the contrary. But in the Congress party, we've really identified young people to enter and work with us, whether it's in our social media cell, whether it's in the professional Congress, so that you might be working in the IT sector, but engage us with your experience by joining the professional Congress, or if you're really interested in becoming a future Prime Minister or a future MLA, then come into the youth wing, because in every election, the youth wing gets a certain set of seats that they are bound, that representatives from the youth cell will get. So we are really focusing hard on making young people a big part of our future. And as you've seen in the recent Rajasthan government passing the 33% reservation for women, we're making young people and women a very core area of how to engage with. We might succeed, we might not succeed, but we're definitely trying.
Well, we'll take one last question from a foreign delegate. Yes.
Hello, my name is Ernest and I'm a proud African. However, my question has to do with some of the discussion that I had. I want to first state that there's a difference between being a politician and being a leader. Most of the politicians in today's world normally focus on winning the next election, whilst leaders pay so much attention in cultivating or putting in structures to help the next generation to come. So do you think it's always necessary to be on a political ticket in order to be the change you want to see in the world, or you can just start from where you are and be the change? Thanks.
I agree with the premise of your question, that there's a difference between politicians and leaders. But I must say, given from my limited experience, and Shekhar might corroborate it, all good politicians are not leaders, but all leaders are definitely have very smart political instincts.
I mean, if I can take that forward, I can tell you that Mr. Anna Hazare is not a political leader, but he's a very hard-nosed politician. He knows his politics very well. So you can't be a leader without knowing. I know that you want one more session in popular demand. I will ask the organizers to give us one more session with this panel. But until that happens, I think we have to now go home.
Yes, my name is...
No, we can't take any more questions now.
So I am from Jammu and Kashmir and I have one question, so please, if you can.
All right, last.
Thank you. Thank you, Telangana Jagruti, for providing this opportunity, and it's a wonderful atmosphere here. I just want to ask to all the distinguished panel here, that's what's the idea of India for Kashmir? Particularly, what's the strategy you have for the Kashmiri youths particularly, and as you are debating and discussing youth, and particularly to Oasis, I want to ask that what kind of, as you have said that parliamentary democracy is not properly functioning, and back home in Jammu and Kashmir, many teenagers and scholars are feeling alienated and joining other ranks. So what's particularly Government of India, and particularly as the parliamentarian, you people are thinking about the youngsters of Jammu and Kashmir? Thank you.
Okay, this is going to be headlines tomorrow. Now, I am of the opinion that whether it is the Congress when it was in power in Delhi, or now BJP, they have no policy, no vision to bring back normalcy in Kashmir. What we do is that we wait for normalcy to come, and then we forget about Kashmir. And when there is trouble in Kashmir, when there is burnings in Kashmir, we immediately react. So I feel that there has to be a consistent policy on Kashmir, which unfortunately is lacking, and a government with 280 seats. Today, India today has carried a report that this government has not done anything for Kashmiri Pandits. They have no data of refugees. Now, thirdly, as far as Kashmir youth is concerned, I must say that in last 8 years, I have never seen so many youth lives being completely being destroyed, whether in the form of those pellet guns. I have seen so many youth getting medical attention here in the L.V. Prasad Hospital, which is quite famous for eye treatment. They have lost their vision. And now, instead of having a policy for Kashmir, the government now is aiming to have less lethal weapons. Now, this shows where the priority lies. So, unfortunately, the Kashmir problem cannot be treated as some sort of a James Bond or in a Rambo style. Someone will have to show statesman-like approach. And yes, there is a lot of alienation. And that is why we see that a by-election cannot be held. More than 8 months have passed. That is why we see that Farooq Abdullah gets elected with only 10,000 votes.
maybe I feel that the National Conference cadre just went and voted for him. So yes, things have to be done in a proper way, and I feel that the youths, these pellet guns, all these things, and also Pakistan should stop meddling in Kashmir affairs. And let me say it once again, I'm sure that many Kashmiris will not like me saying it, that how is it that a Muslim sitting in Hyderabad constantly says this? Kashmir is and will always be an. Having said that, integral part means even the Kashmiris are integral part. The Kashmiri youth are also integral part. And I hope that what an IAS officer, Faisal Shah, I hope he does not join those two parties. Let him chart out his own independent politics. That is what Kashmir requires. You don't want Kashmir political journey to be controlled by Babus or IB lead officers sitting in Delhi. Thank you.
I think that he's right. That's a news-making point, on which note I think we should, much as I'm reluctant to do, no, we have to close this. No, we have to close this session now. Thank you very much. You've been a brilliant audience, and you've been a very worthy panel, all of you.